Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, Detroit. Early voting runs through Sunday, November 2nd. You can cast your ballot at one of our 9 early vote centers from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. In this general election, we will elect the mayor, city council, city clerk, and other city officials. To find the location near you, visit our website or call us at 313-876-0190. So let your voice be heard and vote.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. I am Saeed Khan, and yes, maybe the federal government is shut down, but we are not. So, never. So, another very, very interesting week that's transpired. We are joined by two of our three esteemed lawyers, Steve Fishman and Joel Sklar. Phil Seikaly is jetting off somewhere. Don't know when he'll be back again, but
visiting his grandchildren. Ha ha ha. He thinks that's a good excuse to miss this show.
He knows that public relations specialist Beverly Watts is here and will somehow the other cajole us to show an old photo of his. Maybe he's
No, don't.
Maybe he's evading that. We're also joined by pollster Ed Sarpolus, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, who's, I think, a little bit happier now that there is actually more people on the XX side of the genetics Punnett Square represented today, unlike last week.
You are correct. I am not flying the flag all by myself. Beverly's here.
There you go.
Yeah.
But flying the solo flag for co-founder of Deadline Detroit is Allan Lengel joining us. Well, last week was the No Kings rally across the United States. Estimates are 7 million people took to the streets to show solidarity as well as their disdain for a monarch that we not only never signed up to have, but actually had this thing called the American Revolution to try to avoid. And from what I understand, happening in Great Britain with the younger brother of said monarch now, phew. But it seems as though at least one side of the political aisle was not only dismissive, but downright mocking of the efforts, including President Trump, who took to social media, posting an AI-generated video of him wearing a crown over a flight helmet in a fighter bomber, and then dropping large quantities of excrement on said No Kings rally demonstrators as a way of rebuking what he saw as, in some cases, George Soros-funded individuals who were taking to the streets because no one would actually take to the streets without funding. Nancy, did you get your George Soros check?
I did not get my George Soros check. And in fact, that's what my sign said. Mr. Soros, where's my check? And, and then it was on the other side, it said, unpaid protester will despise Donald Trump for free. So there. Anyway, it was a good one though. It was a unseasonably warm day. We were able to park a couple miles away and ride bikes in, which gave it a certain festive party atmosphere. Roosevelt Park was peaceful. And but what really was heartening for me, because this is the third major demonstration we've done. This is second No Kings. The first one I think was called Hands Off in April. So it was April, June, and then this one. But the really good one was at the last minute, they announced a Grosse Pointe / east side of Detroit rally at the corner of Mack and Cadieux. And I thought, okay, we're going to see 10 garden club ladies and their elderly husbands. And there were like hundreds of people there. I drove past it on my way to Detroit and I was just honking in solidarity and people were just shaking their signs. And despite what your right-wing friends tell you, it was not all old people at all. There were kids, there were young adults. It was very heartening to see. It's we can't do anything about this fire. The White House is on fire with a bulldozer clawing at it right now, but it felt good. So
Nancy, did you said that it was a Grosse Pointe East Side of Detroit rally? So did they actually lower the drawbridge over the moat that separates Detroit and Grosse Pointe?
Detroiters on the other side of Mac.
Okay.
Only Grosse Pointers on this side. No, it looked like it was a lot of fun. So,
okay,
there you go.
Ed, how are you seeing the sort of the aftermath of this latest rally when it comes to polling? Is it moving the needle at all in any direction?
Well, what it's doing, it's healing the wounds from Kamala Harris. I think that's my sense, because they're finally Democrats that come together around an issue they care about. Because what surprised me was the fact is that I don't think they would have showed up. George Soros was one involved. Is George Connolly? Okay, man, you look at some people that showed up at the events. Some MAGA Republicans, some conservative Republicans were part of the thing. And I think that's the healing process. But they're because you're even sensing now, yeah, she was bad, but she would have been better than Trump. You're getting some Republicans saying that it would have been safer. You go down to Mississippi and you see what's interesting, my friends going to Mississippi and Mississippi, there's no more, there's a Trump sign everywhere anymore, okay? We're beginning to see the impact. Because remember, Kamala was winning until she started attacking Trump, okay? So the point being that now Trump is the issue. It's focused. And remember, these were things we're talking about now what people are concerned about: health care, kid care. In Michigan, we're going to start losing about food stamps for people. 1.4 million people be losing food stamps. So I think that you see numbers moved up nationally, up to Democrats and congressional, up to some polls having about 3 to up to 7%, where they were down last month.
Wow. Beverly, I mean, how are you seeing this from the standpoint of the Democratic Party and Democratic politicians? I know that the midterms are next year, but the primaries are probably not more than 6 months away. Is this a time that there should be some messaging that then countermands, for example, the fentanyl ads and some of the other thank President Trump for what he's doing? How do you see them working their way into it? Is it a little bit premature, or should they strike when the iron is hot?
Yeah, I think we got to strike and definitely be strategic. Going back to some of the points Ed made, I do agree on one thing, that people have turned the page on last November. Right now, it's like the here and now of what's happening. I would add to that list, people are also looking at the age of the ICE, the immigration, how certain Americans or how, people here are being treated. They realize that could be them too, because it's not a plan. You're just coming in and just trying to take over a community and chasing individuals down the street like they're animals. So I do believe that people have turned the page on that. I like to see the unity of people who have felt like they're hopeless. They're finding their way back, and they're finding collectively unified. And I'm glad to see that some of my Republican counterparts and colleagues, and I do have a lot of them, that they are ready to unite, because it's not about, for them, like one told me yesterday, the blue, the red. It's really about our country now. And they're going back to basically just basic human rights for everyone. And they think that really they have a person that's totally unstable and people around him in the White House. So now, they're worried about mental health, but they're worried about him and his team, and it's about saving the country.
And also remember now, Ronald Reagan has joined the conversation for us, because now he's doing video expose from 1987 about terrorists, and that's going to be supposedly shown. That ad's going to be shown at the Major League playoffs in Toronto.
Yeah, so thank the Canadians for that. That's not an American idea. That's a Canadian.
Right. I know, but I'm just kidding you. It's Reagan.
No, I think it's really significant. I mean, I've been just asking for the Democrats to start doing that. Expose this guy every fucking day, every week. You got plenty of money. Expose him. I don't know what the reticence is to do what the Canadians just did.
Right. You got to meet him where he is. I agree with you. And Joel, you got to stop being so nice. They got to come out with guns blazing, because you're not going to be making the point, save this country, save in same sanity, with just doing the same old thing and just being nice.
Sanity doesn't work.
Time out.
Just call it out for what it is. Yeah. Show his lies. I mean, just do. It doesn't seem
to me. He keeps saying, of course, the shutdown, and I'm glad they're standing tall. Democrats, throw it back, meet him where they are.
So this Canadian ad was invoking a speech that Ronald Reagan gave in 1987, decrying the use of tariffs as being unhelpful. And apparently this set off President Trump to the point where he then petulantly said all trade negotiations with Canada are off. Apparently the Canadians were so strident that they didn't even use the word sorry anywhere in the ad.
Sorry. That's
brilliant.
Fish. The point that Layla just put up there was about Trump's response to the other thing. That's his response all the time because he's a child. Yeah, right there. It was repugnant and immature and childish is what it is. And it's the same thing here. He cannot stand anything that criticizes anything about him because he's a baby. And then, of course, he has to put himself into like he's a fighter pilot or something, even though he's a draft dodger. Right. You guys are so correct. They just got to keep doing that because it affects them. The normal person would go, that was funny, Ronald Reagan, 1987. Not this guy. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. He sounds like a 4-year-old sitting in a nursery school, for God's sake. And I think we just need to continue to do these kinds of things.
Insult to 4-year-olds, by the way.
Yeah, that might be insulting.
Yeah. Alan.
I think the one very effective campaign has been the late night shows. SNL, although the last SNL cold opening was horrible, one of the worst. But generally, the comedians have had some of the strongest voices, I think, in America in hammering, and it drives him crazy. That's why he was dancing when Jimmy Kimmel got kicked off the air. He was dancing when Colbert's show was canceled. He pays attention to that stuff, every single thing. So it does have some effect.
Alan, apparently, and this was confirmed by his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, that President Trump's priority right now is the revamping of the East Wing and constructing the Ballroom.
The destruction of the East Wing and the
that too.
Another great commercial.
Steve.
That's again consistent with what I've been saying, and a lot of people have been writing in saying that's exactly where the guy's mindset is. Think about that. That's the president of the United States with all the things going on in this country and in the world, and this is what he's obsessed with. Now, the East Wing and whatever building is big fucking ballroom. I mean, if that doesn't tell people out there in the world what kind of person this is and make them scratch their head if they voted for the guy, I don't know what will.
Well, in a lot of cases, nothing will do. We keep talking about childishness and, how disgusting this, shitstorm video was and everything else. The corruption, the open, naked corruption is just appalling. Yesterday he didn't give clemency to, he pardoned this Chinese guy known as CZ, who is apparently, who pled guilty to money laundering and some other, serious crimes surrounding this Bitcoin exchange that he has. It's called Binance. And apparently this guy is in a deal with the Trump family, and with the Trump family's stupid crypto thing. And I just keep thinking Jimmy Carter put his peanut farm into a blind trust. And now we're just saying, well, we're going to need this guy on the outside.
After the Hunter Biden outrage.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's insane.
They literally are the crime family that they claimed.
Yeah. Exactly. It's
because all you have to do is just say, I support you, and you can get out no matter what you've done.
You pay them. It's transactional.
Yeah.
I have a question for Ed. Ed, do the polls show or has polling been done? Any reaction at all from the public to exactly what we're now talking about the corruption, $230 million he wants from the Justice Department, all this other stealing? Has there been polling as to how people are reacting to the absolute corruption that's going on there?
Well, that's the mood that they're in, but they don't understand this stuff. Okay, this is the problem is they don't understand it. Okay, for example, he's suing himself for $230 million from the DOJ. Right. The public doesn't understand that. They don't. But it's just the mood that they're beginning to have a mood that this is bad. They don't really understand, but they know that it isn't sounding good.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the Democrats could come in and break it down simple terms, because everybody's moving fast. Sound bites, and they can take advantage of this. Break it down.
Buy some ad time. Buy a minute.
Simplicity.
And you know, it's funny. The lobbyist that was hired to get the pardon is a very close friend of Don Jr. And he was hired by that. I mean, it's so, the corruption level is like we've never seen. I mean, look, there's been some corruption over time in every organization, even DOJ, FBI, whatever. But it is so brazen, and it's so brazen being directed from the White House. We've never, ever seen. It's unprecedented what we've seen here.
I have another question for Ed.
Yes.
How does their favorite thing, the MAGA people, Trump and all of them, their favorite thing is, well, what about that guy? What about this guy? What about that guy? How does that play with in other words, look at Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was the absolute crook as far as I'm concerned. He's a criminal, and he deserved to be convicted and go to prison. But that's what they seem to do all the time, the MAGA people. Oh, it's not just, it says, look at this, look at that. Is there any polling or anything that?
Okay, well, here's our problem, okay? You got to understand, Trump doesn't care about everybody else. He only talks to his base. That's all he cares about. And you got to remember this, even church people, and I'm Catholic and I get involved, when you have now even the Pope saying, okay, for example, you can tell he's getting scared because now he's afraid he's going to go to hell. He's actually admitting that. So the point being the fact, remember, just go down south to you that he's in the Bible and he's God.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the problem. But he doesn't care because he's only focusing on his ego and his self. Okay. So he's never going to stop. And his group, you don't have a lot of brain trust people in his big MAGA group. Unless you want to hear all of us.
So Ed, back in January 2021, the U.S. Capitol was stormed and it was breached, and that didn't seem to bother people as a major symbol of the United States, both physically and metaphorically, when it comes to democracy, was being defiled. And now we have these images of the bulldozing of the White House for something as crass as a ballroom. So there's a physical aspect to it, and there's a metaphorical aspect. Is this different, do you think, from what happened at the Capitol? I mean, is this going to be what gets people upset, or is the pitch simply going to pass by again with this? That they don't see it.
We need to tie the issues together. They don't know how to tie them together. For example, remember, his base doesn't want any government.
Right.
Okay, you got to understand that. So you have to bring up Lincoln. For example, remember, he's tearing down the house of Lincoln. If I'm going to sell the South, I have to talk about Lincoln. We have to tie the issues together, and we're not doing that.
Right.
But he's even said that I'm actually better than Washington and Lincoln because of all the wars I'm getting rid of. I mean,
but when he says that, nobody's disputing it and connecting it and proving it wrong. You got to come back with that simplistic message, because he's going to say that stuff all day long.
His job, right?
And you got to remember, we can't get the Europeans to say anything more. For a lot of, if you read some of the European stuff, they think the White House now looks like a brothel or a whorehouse. Because all the gold.
They get insulting brothels and whorehouses.
Yeah.
You know what? I was watching.
The whores inside are ugly as shit, man. You know.
I was watching.
To sleep with Stephen Miller.
Oh my God.
I was watching the news the other day, and I saw Ken Martin, the head of DNC, and I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I haven't, nobody knows. I mean, it used to be the head of the DNC had had a profile, had something. These people are like invisible. You can't be invisible leading a party that is invisible.
I mean, he's an insurance salesman. That's what it looks like to me. He just looks like he's selling me some disability insurance. I don't like him. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nancy.
I was just going to say my internet went out, and I'm sorry. I'm back on a hot link on my phone, but so I may have.
You're looking hot here, Nancy. So you're fine.
So I may have missed somebody
working.
saying something about this, but the God, now it just like flew right out of my head because somebody made me a mild compliment, and that's what happens. So,
well, now that you got wooed, Nancy. So on the one hand, Trump goes ahead and pardons the guy from Binance, but he commuted the sentence of disgraced former New York Congressman George Santos. who was supposed to be serving 7 years, but I don't even know if he served 7 weeks.
3 months.
And at the same 3 months, and at the same time, he's now seeking charges against others, including ex-CIA director William Brennan.
Crazy.
Alan.
Well, you know, it's interesting. He tried to compare him. He said, well, Senator Blumenthal,
Right.
who kind of fudged his service when he was running when he was running for Senate, he fudged his service in Vietnam. He was in the military during Vietnam, and he said, I served during Vietnam. He never went to Vietnam. So Trump said it's no different than what Blumenthal did, where you know, this guy stole millions of dollars of donations and defrauded the voters and did all these kind of horrible things. Yeah. And then Trump said, well, at least he had the smarts to vote Republican.
Right.
And so,
Well, now, in fairness, I mean, Blumenthal actually is Jewish, whereas Santos is Jewish.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was the real fraud that he's forgiven. So,
Steve, catch us. There was a story this morning, the fact that he still might have to go back to jail, that he's not off the hook because of the pardon. The pardon was not complete. Okay.
What does that mean?
Joel, do you know about that? They said this morning that the
State
pardon
charges.
Wait,
Yes.
the only thing I could tell you, I haven't seen it, but I'm going to go look right now that you mentioned it. You can't pardon anybody for state offenses, and if I remember, Santos had a state case as well, and he got time as part of the state case, even if it was concurrent, because oftentimes if you have a state and a Fed case, the judges will sentence you concurrently, so wherever you're doing your time. But all Trump can pardon him for is the federal offense. So in about 2 minutes, I'll be back and tell you what the story is.
Okay.
So carry on.
oh my God!
Yes, sir.
Marine Corps would say carry on. Okay.
we do have a picture of democracy here at work.
Wow.
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 You want to explain yourself, Saeed?
I will plead the fifth. No, I was at the Global Ties Detroit banquet was last night. A wonderful organization that does really so much. Suffering though because of the fact that so much of the State Department budget has cut out some of these exchange programs, which are so beneficial and really help to foster and promote, I think, some of the best ideals of America. But anyway. Michigan 13 Congressman, or actually, should I just say MI 13 because it sounds like MS 13? Congressman Sri Tanadar, as you know, the first time in over 40 years that the city of Detroit hasn't been served in Congress by an African American. Well, he showed up, and somebody dared me to go ahead and take a photograph with him. And so I did. And if you can see the look on my face, it is really trying to. It is trying
lips
to
are pressed
bite
together like he's trying not to
Biting your lip.
That's right. And
I think I saw a slight smile though.
well, the smile. I mean, my face was literally cavitating. I had the shakes to keep it in, Beverly. But somebody asked me. They said, "Doesn't he look a bit embalmed?" And I said, "More so than Lennon." But it was weird because he was very taciturn. He didn't speak. They did acknowledge him being there, and he just showed some FaceTime, did a little bit of hobnobbing, spent most of his time on his phone, and then left. So so there you go, Steve.
So I just checked it out. What Ed's referring to is the state prosecutor indicated that their investigation is not yet complete.
Okay.
Which means to me that somebody's thinking about maybe we'll just charge him there. And so you guys know, and so the audience knows, before you think, oh, they can't do it because he was already charged about such and such in federal court, there's no such rule. You can be convicted for the exact same conduct under different statutes, a federal statute and a state court statute. So he will not be able to say it's double jeopardy. He won't be able to use that as a defense. And if they've got something going on and it's the same stuff, then Georgie's going to go back. And keep in mind, there's a big difference between state prisons and federal prisons. He was sitting in a place where he's out there having himself a good time, probably, you know, whatever it is that guy does. If he goes to a state place, that should be interesting.
Yeah.
But Steve, was he ever convicted of any state on the state level?
No, but that doesn't mean you can't be. As long as the statute of limitations hasn't passed. I don't know what the statute is in New York. It's 6 years here in Michigan.
Yeah.
If the statute hasn't passed, then you can continue to be prosecuted. The only, I suppose, if he had a good defense lawyer, the lawyer will try to argue that this is just vindictive prosecution. That's a very, very difficult thing to prevail on. You're going to see it with Comey, for instance, and I don't know if you've read articles about it. They're talking about, it's obvious to all of us, that's true, but the case law stinks. And they're going to have an interesting time with Comey's case. This one, I think, would be the same way, but it would be in state court. I don't know what the New York Supreme Court has said about those things.
Right.
So what you're saying is if we want a cameo from George Santos, we better get it before he goes.
That's what I
behind the wall again.
She didn't say, the lady didn't, I just went real quickly and looked. She didn't say she's going to do anything. In fact, she was smart. She prefaced her remarks by saying, I appreciate the work we did jointly with the federal government, but our investigation was still going on, blah, blah, blah. So don't be surprised. And that would tick Trump off no end because he thinks he's king or whatever the hell he thinks he is. And the fact that he'd be so frustrated that he can't do anything about a state court conviction or a state court sentence, it'll be interesting to see him sputtering and muttering about that.
Instead of the National Guard, God knows what he'll do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, now it seems as though he's pulling back from sending troops into San Francisco because some of his tech bros, the tech bros intervened on that. So King Charles III apparently was at the Vatican yesterday, the first British monarch in 500 years to pray with the Pope since his ancestor decided to break off from the Catholic Church in order to get a divorce from Catherine of Aragon. Well, we have the city-state that is, of course, the Vatican, but we have our own little enclave here in the Detroit area, which is Hamtramck. And apparently, wasn't that a deft segue there, Nancy? And it looks like felony charges have been dismissed against Hamtramck City Councilman Muhtasin Sadman when he was charged with election fraud, including allegedly forging the signature of a voter on a ballot. Allan, I know that you have a particular affinity for Hamtramck, and while they ban flags there, I have a feeling they won't ban the statue that they'll erect of you there. So,
yes. No, I mean it's the whole place has just been a mess. The police chief who was supposed to be fired worked out some type of severance package where he had all these investigations going about questionable activities he was involved in. They have now given him a severance of, I can't remember, $57,000 or whatever. They've had such a cloud over the place. And we do have that Mayor Galib, who is now, I think there's a hearing this week in the Senate on his confirmation as the ambassador to Kuwait. Jewish groups have been opposing him, saying that he's posted anti-Semitic and racist things on Facebook. So it'll be an interesting hearing. The mayor of Dearborn Heights has been confirmed already as an ambassador, but I think they're having to do more preparation for this hearing and stuff.
Well, on the mayor of Hamtramck, he was already told by a Republican senator and a Democratic senator, we're not going to support you in committee. Right. Number two, he refused to answer the question, is Israel allowed to stay where they stay as a country? He basically did not answer that question. He still sounds like his old Yemeni statement, the fact Israel should not exist.
Right. And while he liked a lot of posts certain years, he just liked everything. So he really didn't pay attention to what he was liking when he clicked on like. He just liked them.
He was particularly grilled by Texas Senator Ted Cruz yesterday about that. Actually, Ambassador.
Okay, I apologize.
Apparently, Ambassador Sam Bazzi was at the Global Ties banquet yesterday, and apparently he's leaving in a couple of weeks for Tunisia, which is his new assignment. And it seemed like he sailed through the Senate Judiciary Committee and the vote in front of the full Senate. So a tale of two Detroit cities.
I think Bazzi's a little bit more savvy. I think Galib didn't understand some of the stuff that he was posting, how it could come back to haunt him. The reward was he jumped on board with Trump. He was a Democrat in 2024, but he was getting so angry that with the gay pride flag that the Democrats, and particularly like the Attorney General here, Dana Nessel, had come to Hamtramck and was criticizing him and stuff. And I think he got fed up. And meanwhile, conservatives like Michael Flynn were coming to town and embracing him. And he's like, hey, the Republicans, they love me. The Democrats don't. And so he got swept up and he helped Trump, he campaigned for Trump. So
I think it only worked for Sally Field at the Oscars, but I don't think they like him. They don't really like him.
Yeah.
Well, how many people go from being mayor of a little city like Hamtramck to an ambassadorship? I mean, that is a pretty.
How many people go from prison to an ambassadorship like Kushner's dad? What are we talking about here?
Well, that's true. Well, at least Kushner.
How many felons with 34 felons get to be president? Let's just go on.
Nancy, I think all of these questions can be answered by how many times you click the red ruby slippers. So why do we go to a commercial, Alan?
Hello, Detroit. On Tuesday, November 4th, a general election is scheduled to elect the mayor and other city officials. Please return your absentee ballot by mail, drop box, or at the Department of Elections. Polls open at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Election Day. You can ride the DDOT buses to the polls for free. To find your polling place, visit our website or call 313-876-0190. So let your voice be heard and vote.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
So with a new term of the U.S. Supreme Court underway and no prediction on how the court will rule or even uphold past precedent, it seems like a lot of stock and faith is being placed in the lower courts. In fact, in Chicago, a judge has ordered that any ICE agents that are operating without warrants to arrest migrants can themselves be arrested. How do you think this is going to play out, particularly Joel and Steve?
Well, the notion is supposed to be, okay, just so everybody knows, you're supposed to only be able to arrest people if you have probable cause that they've committed a crime. I think, and I haven't read the judge's opinion, and I don't even think I read a summary of what the judge had to say. But if their position is, I have probable cause to arrest you because you look like you're Mexican, that's probably not going to qualify into any courtroom other than some crazed MAGA courtroom like that guy down in Oklahoma or wherever he is. And I think that's probably what the issue is, because there's no way you have, at least under our law as it now stands, you don't have the right to arrest people based on how they look, unless they look like a guy who stuck up a bank and they look like him enough that makes it hit the same guy. So I would say that that's where we're at. We'll have to see what they'll appeal it to the Court of Appeals and see what happens. But that's my guess as to what's going on. They're saying these arrests with no probable cause.
Keep in mind, these people aren't just being snatched out of off of the street, as we've been saying. They're also being snatched out of courtrooms. I mean, these are some of these people who are being dragged off to, wherever are here legally. They're asylum seekers, okay? And they've gone through the process. And it's like, show up for your court hearing. New York Magazine had a story about the immigration court in New York where the ICE officers are just dragging people out. It's like, we've decided, they do everything right. They show up for their court hearing, and then, suddenly some goon with a mask over his face is pulling him out and saying, we've decided that your status is being revoked. See you later. Right. And, there's families there and, tears and hysterics. They don't give a shit. These are the worst people in the world.
They are. But there's the Fourth Amendment works with the 14th Amendment. And we talk about due process, and due process would mandate that to get a warrant, the officer or someone would go before a magistrate, explain the reasons for it, and the magistrate would say okay or no okay. You say yes or no. Typically, fine, go ahead. That would be the right thing to go through. To snatch people without papers, literally without a warrant, without any authority to do so, just because you want to threaten to or even arrest people who are following you, who are trying to impede you from doing an illegal act, you're going to arrest. It is just the continuation of disrespect and disregard for the very constitutional rights the republic was built upon. It's the same with the First Amendment, with the shitting on people doing exactly how you want people to voice their discontent is by marching peacefully, truly with joy to march. No city was burned. Nobody was arrested who have participated in the march. Only those arrested were people trying to interfere with the march. Right. So what this is just we're getting normalized to people being snatched off the streets. Yeah. And these are just people. And the Supreme Court, I'm telling you, is going to say for this emergency, if you look a certain way, I think they're going to authorize it. Trump can act with impunity. He is killing people extrajudicially. He's killed 40 people without any without any sense of who they are, not proving to us who we're funding this, who they are, what they've done, if it's a capital offense. How are you doing this? And it's normalizing this. And so it's just going to keep to descend. So this is exceptionally dangerous, what's happening. It is an anathema to who we are, and we're watching it in real time. And history is repeating itself, and we understand history because we're old enough to, but people have forgotten the lessons that we're going to have to learn again or not learn again. It's terrible.
Well, Steve, this is the issue that bugs MAGA people, the Southern people, okay, especially in Texas, because a lot of their Hispanic people are their friends and neighbors that grew up with them. Okay, this is the issue that's cutting amongst Trump's base support. Okay, and especially yesterday when ICE people were stealing kids off playgrounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and they ran to their parents saying, "I got away, Mom. I'm safe." Okay, but this is the issue that's getting to those MAGA Republicans, or especially Southern, like Texas. George Bush was not remember, he was fighting against this stuff. Ronald Reagan did the same thing in California. Hispanics are part of society. That's what's starting to bug MAGA people, is these type of things.
Ed, is the anger in Texas being directed at the Trump administration, or is it at Governor Greg Abbott? Because it seems as though he's not only marching in lockstep, but it seems some would argue that he's facilitating this, him and Attorney General Ken Paxton down there.
The problem is it's disjointed because remember, Texas doesn't have to meet regularly. Right. So that's their problem. They don't know who to blame. Okay, that's the problem down. Because when I worked in Texas, they don't have to meet. As a matter of fact, the Speaker of the House actually has his own apartment in the Capitol. It's sort of more disjointed. Yes, they're blaming him, but they're not, because they don't have regular meetings. They're not in the media on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Yeah, Alan.
I know a lot of people get angry when they talk about comparisons to Nazi Germany in the 30s. But there are so many, and people say, "Oh, you can't compare." To Hitler or whatever. Yes, okay, Hitler, World War II, and Hitler pre-World War II is a whole other thing. And we're seeing some of the very same things that were happening in Nazi Germany. And, I remember reading, and Albert Einstein in 1930 said, "Don't worry about Hitler, he's people aren't going to take him seriously. He's preying on people's empty stomachs, but he's going to go away." And people were saying Hitler's a clown. And so a lot of the same stuff that people said about Trump. But look, they are taking away rights. And the problem is that so many of the Americans who say it's not my rights, I don't care, get rid of these immigrants. And some of us who had immigrant parents are particularly sensitive to this type of stuff.
Well, what about some of the national like cable media? I mean, I was watching CNN and they were like, really glass half full. Well, at least he's not sending troops into San Francisco, so we can breathe easier. Almost completely ignoring Chicago and some of these other places. But this idea, Joel, that you mentioned regarding the First Amendment, it's not just something that is being enforced here. It is almost as the Philip K. Dick short story Minority Report would have, and of course the movie with Tom Cruise. Precog, the idea of visa applicants to the United States being denied over some interesting opinions, including being critical of deceased political activist Charlie Kirk. I mean, that seems to be really a stretch.
It is. It is. I mean, again, this is an administration that has no regard for the Constitution. Any article of the Constitution. This administration doesn't give a shit. This is why it's like, this is why it's a fascist government, whether or not we want it or not. It is a fascist government. That's where we are. The courts are neutered. The Supreme Court certainly is, and that's where the buck stops. Congress is neutered. All we got is an executive who sees himself as God and acts that way. And so the Constitution is not the law. Trump is the law. And that's the problem we have. And that's why we're descending down, right? And what do we do? Just like we're talking about, expose it. The emperor has no clothes. It's been a long time now. And I think if we expose guys like Stephen Miller, people are not going to like Stephen Miller if they get to know him. If we juxtapose what Trump says and what he's done, people will probably maybe a little bit wake up, and I don't see us doing that, but I would love to see us.
It's weird. I meet more people nowadays who are just tuning out because the news depresses them. The news upsets them. The news is, takes too much time. And so they end up just tuning out. And
Nice.
I keep trying to tell people it's like you have to pay attention to what's going on right now. I know it's unpleasant, but turning away from it is not a strategy. You just can't do this anymore.
Right.
But I had I treated myself last night. I had a lovely massage. I had a 75-minute massage. Man, it was good. And
why was she glowing this morning?
And what did he say to woo you there, Nancy?
What's going on in Grosse Pointe? Seriously, what's going on over there? Huh?
And the therapist said, I said something about he's tearing down the White House, and she's like, he's what? I said, you're not paying attention. I said, they are literally taking a wrecking ball, or those, whatever they call them, those claw machines, to the East Wing of the White House. And she's like, that can't be true. I said, it's absolutely true. It's happening now. In fact, it's pretty much over now. And she's like, how can he do that? Well, this is because nobody's paying attention.
She believed that they were eating the cats, though.
Yeah. And Nancy, with no sense of irony, that equipment is called a backhoe.
A backhoe, yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, Alan.
I have been getting, for some reason, when I was working at the Washington Post, I started receiving the Imprimis newsletter from Hillsdale College. And I wrote the president, Larry Arnn, the other day, and I said, you guys are such big boosters of the Constitution. They offer a free Constitution class online. And I said, well, tell me, the other day, the government had revoked the visas of some foreign people, some immigrants who posted some anti-Charlie Kirk things. I said, I thought the Constitution applies to everyone living in the U.S., not just U.S. citizens. I'd love for you to comment on that, or maybe write a column for Deadline Detroit. I saw that he opened the email right away, but I've not heard a response yet.
His assistant opened the email. I'm sure he doesn't read his own email, at least not the pre-read.
That kook from Deadline Detroit writing.
Remember,
all I know the fact he said I get a letter from him once a month because I'm in that gray zone of everybody in my community is Republican, so he sends out those letters.
So speaking of Republicans, Ed, conservative poll by the Plymouth Union Public Research has put Republican candidate John James at 35% for the governor's race for next year, against 31% for an unnamed Democrat, and independent Mike Duggan at 12%. The poll has a plus or minus 4% margin of error, which means then that they see James against a Democrat in a statistical dead heat. But I was a little bit surprised that Duggan was polling so low. Does this just happen to do with the sample of 600 people that the Plymouth Union Public Research Organization?
Well, first of all, that poll was hired for a specific purpose, to save the political life of John James. Right now, Republicans want him out of the state, want him off the ballot. You're doing it. Even the DeVos family now is dividing. They no longer necessarily support them. So that poll was statistically weighted to give that type of result. Okay.
Are you saying he paid for his own polling?
Well, not necessarily him, but his interest groups. Because right now, the fact he was kicked off Mackinac Island, he wouldn't go. The DeVos family gave him a $2 million house to move from Macomb County. So all of a sudden, this poll shows up. Now, can I justify those numbers? Yes, because if you weight the data based on partisan makeup, the more Republican, more Democrat, you can get those numbers. If you notice, there's never been a poll where both candidates are below 40% Democrat or Republican. It just does not exist, okay? And the Duggan thing, that's true statewide. Matter of fact, he's now trying to run TV ads up in Saginaw and Mount Pleasant. The only place he's leading is in the Detroit area. So the point being is that poll was specifically done to save the political life of John James. Beverly, you and I have been along for a long time. When I saw those numbers, can I justify them if it kept it high weighted? Remember, just remind me, this is what Romney did in 2004. Remember that? No, Obama, 2016, excuse me. That's the same thing that was done for Romney to show how he was leading. So that poll is bogus. The weighting's so fine, but that's a bogus poll.
Do you think that the Republicans do not want him? They want someone better in there, or
yes,
they don't want him. I mean,
who's the better candidate?
Well, that's their trouble.
Well, they say anybody.
Anybody.
That's just my Republicans friends quietly. They're like anybody.
No, but they've been open. But when the DeVos family says, "Well, we're rethinking our position," that tells you this was their candidate. They got him out of the stuff. Okay, and remember, they're not really giving him much money to do anything because now he's back. Remember, every campaign he's run, all it's care about become my co-pilot. Okay,
you got to remember, people
a noun, a verb, and a helicopter.
Yeah,
and they've been doing their own polling, and they know that he can't win. They don't want somebody out there just because I like you.
And we're still racist. It's still going to be very hard for a black man to win statewide.
He can't win. It's going to be very difficult.
Yes.
I mean, he barely won in Macomb County. So there you go.
The only reason he won in Macomb County the first time is the fact that Andy Levin convinced the Democrats that no one could win. So Carl Millinga never got any money.
Right. Exactly. We've talked about that.
That's why.
And Ed, Darling Gilchrist, do you think race is an issue in the Democratic side, or do you think it's just...
I'm going to tell you something, and this is going to be crude. Even blacks tell me the fact they don't think he has a chance.
Yeah. Because
but you're right. I think Ed, you're right, but I think
I don't want to say why. I don't want to say why, okay, but you know why. Okay, I just don't want to go there, okay?
Right. But I do know a lot of people like him as a person.
Well, I helped him run for city clerk of Detroit. I know him. I helped raise money with John.
But I have heard, especially in the last week or two, that a lot of individuals, while they're saying, I think he won't probably be a difficult task, I hear them saying here in Detroit that they're going to support him.
Yep.
I've been hearing that. I heard
well,
last
you can
night.
hear it if you talk to people on the street that I'm talking to. And secondly, he came out against Israel again. He's taken a pro-Palestinian position. That is dumb. Okay,
Allan, you are going to fly the flag for Garland Gilchrist until
I'm curious because we've had discussions on our other show saying some of the panelists are saying it's racist, and I'm saying no, it's not racist. I think he doesn't have the charisma.
He doesn't have the charisma, and
the money. You're going to need money.
He doesn't have the money, and he comes his lieutenant governorship has not been marked by anything particularly, noteworthy. I mean, he's
the same thing that John
almost like the former lieutenant governor's roles.
Like most lieutenant governors don't really make the mark.
I know. I mean, most vice presidents don't do much either. So that's the yin and the yang of that job.
And see, here's the other problem with Gilchrist. He had to get permission from Duggan to become lieutenant governor. The weekend before Whitmer decided to pick him, he had to get a sign off from Duggan. Duggan says you cannot run for anything in Detroit until after I leave.
Oh, really? Wow.
Okay, interesting. So, I mean, he's a very, very nice man, but I work
for him. I like him. I work for him.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's ready for that job.
He's a gentleman.
It's on the one hand, you're one heartbeat away, and on the other hand, you might as well be, living in another country.
I think statewide the issue is going to be height because the average height for a Michigan male is 5'10.3",
Yeah, he's
and
like
there's going to be
6'8". He's so tall.
there's going to be a lot of envy there. Well, speaking of height, Mr. Fishman,
Yes.
the noted Piston, former Piston, Chauncey Billups,
Mr. Big Shot.
It ain't so.
Mr. Big Shot.
Could you please navigate us through the waters in understanding what has happened when the mighty have
I'm
fallen?
looking forward to this. I'm sticking around because I want to hear what Mr. Basketball has to say about this. So take it away, Steve.
It's going to take a few minutes, not just for you guys, but for people who are listening. So the first thing, most important thing for people to understand is these are two separate indictments involving separate types of conduct. The conduct that Chauncey is charged with, in general, 95% of it, has to do with these rigged poker games, okay? And the rigged poker games are completely different from the allegations against the players and other people in the other indictment, which has to do with prop bets and basically cheating while you're playing basketball, okay? So that's the first thing people have to understand. What they're accusing Billups of doing is throwing in with a lot of these guys, these gamblers, and also people who manufacture the kind of equipment that you need if you want to rig poker games so you can see other people's hands and fix the deck and all that kind of stuff. Basically, what they did was Billups and other people who are of stature like him are accused of bringing squares, is what I would call them, rich squares, to poker games, and then knowing full well and getting money for it, going into the poker game, knowing that there's going to be cheating and that the squares are going to get slaughtered and lose a lot of money. How much they really lost, I don't know. In the indictment, the only count that mentions Billups specifically literally involved a loss of $50,000. On the other hand, they're claiming it's millions of dollars that these guys lost. But people need to understand
7 million.
7.5, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The people have to understand that that's basically what he's charged with. The other thing has to do with the players, the Rozier, saying, pretending he's hurt. So he goes out and somebody's betting the under on how many points he's going to score, or all these different prop bets. You guys know what prop bets are?
Explain it.
So prop bets, to be simple, in the old days, you bet on the Pistons to win and you bet on the Celtics to win, and you had a line, Pistons -4, Celtics -12. That was the only bet there was. You bet on that, and that was the end of it. As time has gone on and as the gambling people have taken over the country with the concurrence of the powers that be, they've come up with every possible bet. You can sit there and watch a basketball game, and at the end of the first quarter, they'll give you a line on how many points one of the teams is going to score in the second quarter, or how many points so-and-so is going to wind up with. It never stops, and those are what's called prop bets, proposition bets. Right. Those are the easiest things to screw around with, because if you're going, for instance, on an over-under, it's a guy who's the point guard. Instead of pushing the ball down the floor, he walks it down the floor for the entire quarter. It doesn't mean they're going to lose the game. It doesn't mean that they're not going to score, but the odds are in your favor. If there's only 17 possessions instead of 26 possessions, there'll probably be fewer points. That's the kind of stuff that those guys are alleged to have done. The other thing in that case, and the only thing about Billups in that case, in the basketball part, is that he's supposed to, according to the one thing that mentions him, he's supposed to have told the gamblers that, I can't remember which team was that, a lot of the teams are at the end, they don't want to win. And he had inside information that 5 guys weren't going to play, something like that. And he passed that on to the gamblers in return for money. And that's his involvement in that thing. So it's important for people to understand, basically what he's charged with is being the front, the shill, bringing in the squares to lose money in fixed gambling games. And quite frankly, people say, well, it's just poker. No, it's not. It's no different than any other fraud. It's a fraud. Right. There's a zillion ways you can commit fraud.
You never watched Soprano?
Yeah, this is the executive game.
I was just watching those yesterday.
That's fair. Right.
Let me answer Derrick Henry's thing, okay?
Yeah.
He just put up there all he sees are black people being arrested, right? First thing, what we don't know, Derrick, because you can't trust Kash Patel or anybody in the Trump administration. We don't, yeah, we want to see the Epstein files too. We don't know if any of those guys are actually in the, quote, mafia. In the indictment, they refer to them. This guy's a member of the Gambino family. He might be cleaning the toilets for one of the Gambino people. We don't know that. But all of those people are being arrested. And the thing you have to understand, and if you want to read the indictment, I think the Washington Post is where I read it online. There's different things, different participants in the fixed poker game conspiracy. There's Billups and the other guys who brought people there. There are the Italian guys they claim are mafia members who participated in the game. And then you also have people who are indicted because they created the machinery, all the stuff that enabled them to fix the games. You know, fix the games just with your eyebrows. It's not like that anymore. Now you've got machine. They could see everybody's cards there with this kind of stuff. So those guys are charged. And then there's one or two guys that are charged with extortion. And what does extortion mean? Extortion
You better
means
pay me. You better pay me.
you gotta
some money.
pay, right?
I'm gonna
It doesn't matter how you made it.
You ain't have it. Either way you want to go spend.
And you know, it's the usual crap. Probably when it comes out, it'll be, look, you want me or you want to wind up in the lake? You know, that kind of stuff.
Steve,
Now, one other thing you guys gotta pay attention to. In the indictment, I think there were 7, quote, John Does. Lengel knows from seeing this before. In indictments, they might not call him John Doe, they might call him unknown guy, number one, but there are often indictments that contain people, but they don't have their names. Now, sometimes that could be somebody who down the road is going to get indicted, but 90% of the time when I see that, those are people who are cooperating. Right. And my guess is that at least one person who's cooperating is a guy, and this was based on reading the indictment, the guy who was a manufacturer of machinery, they stole it from him. And he probably said, really? Okay, fine, I'm going to the feds. And
interesting.
The final thing for everybody to understand is when you have stuff like this going on, it doesn't matter what kind of illegality it is. It doesn't matter if it's shooting, selling dope, or fixing poker games. What almost always happens is what people don't think about when they get involved in this, somebody's going to snitch. And that's how the whole thing gets started.
The rumor is
snitches, then one thing leads to the next. And now you start to get, for all we know, they've got audio. Maybe one of the snitches is sitting in the poker game and you hear everybody talking, or they're taking video of the fixed stuff that's in this machinery. So that's
Steve, I've got a question. It was just unsealed. The indictment was both of them were unsealed yesterday. They were filed under seal, I think, on October the 9th. So my question is, Chauncey Billups knew this was coming down. They must have met with him and his attorney, or not, or was this a surprise?
Here's the thing: you can't tell. I don't know. In the normal case, I have people in this office constantly. Why? The feds executed a search warrant somewhere. They went into 3 houses that these guys have something to do with. They call me. They come in, they tell me, I don't know what's going on, but man, can you help me? Oftentimes, if there's a search warrant, they'll have a phone number for a prosecutor, or you get a lawyer involved ahead of time. Why do they want to do that? Why is that good? It's good for 2 reasons. Number one, I can negotiate on their behalf if we're going to try to make a deal. But number 2, they'll always call me. They won't go grab the guy at 6 o'clock in the morning while he's sleeping and his 3 kids are in the house who are 9, 7, and 4. That's what happens. I don't know if Billups knew or any of them knew ahead of time there was something going on. But in this case, I don't think it matters. You got to remember who we're dealing with. You're dealing with the New York District Attorney's Office, which this guy obviously is cool with Trump and them. And you're dealing with an FBI under Cash Patel. There was no way they weren't going to make the public display that they did. They're going to show, they're going to have the perp walk and all that bullshit. And they do that because it makes their dicks bigger. That's, in all honesty, that's it.
All right. That was very concise. I like that.
That was thank you, Stephen. And would that perp walk be traveling?
Let me tell you something. In basketball today, particularly in the NBA, it's almost impossible to get called for traveling.
Can I make the obvious Mitch Albom like observation here? I know gambling is as old as humanity, but the amount of gambling that has infiltrated pro and amateur sports now is just to me, a nice Catholic girl, it's just kind of mind-boggling. And I feel like this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of
they killed the golden goose. They're taking money to sell the integrity of the game, right? The integrity of the game is no longer important because all the leagues now have a business venture with FanDuel, and so their interest isn't the league; it's in making money for the owners. It's
too cold for comfort. Too cold.
Steve, go ahead.
The thing that you all have to understand, and I don't have any way of knowing this because I don't know Chauncey Billups or Mike or Rozier or any of those guys. The odds are, in my opinion, the odds are overwhelming that all the people, the ball players, the coaches, all of these guys who are involved, I guarantee you have huge gambling problems, and they don't have money. Because it doesn't matter. Malik Beasley played for us last year. $4.5 million salary, had not paid his rent. Why? Because he's a gambling addict. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Billups, and there's another coach who's going to get in the middle of it. I'm not going to call his name. These are gambling. And I'll bet you, in spite of all the money they've made in their careers, there is no end to how much money you can lose gambling, because you don't pass out like you do from alcohol or drugs. And the casinos and the FanDuels of the world, they're never going to tell, we don't want your money.
Right.
The state lottery tells you, oh, no, you have a gambling problem. We don't want your money.
Please gamble responsibly.
Watch and see if that turns out to be the truth. That a lot of these people, I'd suggest, I almost would say all of them, but a large percentage of them for sure are going to be gambling addicts. That's my guess.
I think it's probably a bit premature. It's a bit premature to get the over and under on whether he'll be convicted, but I think we'll come back to this sooner rather than later. Allan, let's go to the last segment.
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Okay, Steve, I know for the show it's past your bedtime, so why don't you go first?
Well, it's interesting that we just discussed this, because my Schmuck of the Week, for the reason some of you already suggested, is Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner. Why is Adam Silver the Schmuck of the Week? Because he allowed the NBA, and did it intentionally, and thought it was a good thing to have partnerships with DraftKings and FanDuel and let them sponsor all this stuff. And by associating with them, and I mean, you guys know when you watch a game, I mean, Herman Moore, Calvin Jett, they're out there pumping gambling. So Silver and the other commissioners, but I'm picking him because he's the NBA commissioner, he did this. He created this. And now yesterday, of course, I see quotes and comments from Adam. So we got to do something about this. No shit. You didn't think about that maybe beforehand? So Adam Silver, and I don't pay that much attention to the other commissioners. Adam Silver is my Schmuck of the Week because he enabled this as much as anybody.
I want to add something to that. That was going to be my Schmuck, the major league things. But Lynn Henning, which I have a story in Deadline Detroit today about this. Lynn Henning, who's been the baseball writer for the Detroit News forever and just a great guy, posted on X right after this all happened. He says, sports fans of all stripes are shaking their heads today, disgusted over Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier charges, but not particularly bothered by these same sports being happily married to their gambling house sponsors.
Exactly.
There's the disgust. There's the vileness. When you watch the Tigers, they have every time they have players, FanDuel odds of Nicholson getting a homer, Derringer getting a homer. It's like, it's so, and for them to say, oh my God, gambling's horrible. It's so sad.
Gambling is, my brother lives in subsidized housing in the last years of his life because he could not stop. I know, exactly.
They'll give you $100 back on your first loss.
Yeah, right.
One shining moment, though, in the sports world over this past weekend, Shohei Ohtani for the LA Dodgers with one of the greatest individual performances in any sport. 10 strikeouts and 3 home runs.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Just a remarkable
$70 million a year, but he's worth 2 players at least.
At least worth his weight in gold. Okay, Beverly.
No, mine real quickly, of course, is the mayor of Hamtramck. You know, I understand your confirmation and yeah, you want to be the ambassador, but knowing who you are, knowing the statements that you have made publicly and online throughout the years, you know, you're a schmuck for even going through this confirmation. Hold true to whatever you stand for in the past and the present, but why go through this? So he's my schmuck for even going through the confirmation, for what we know and what he know of his beliefs. If that's what you believe, stand by. You're schmuck. All
right, Ed.
Actually, mine was kind of unique, is because I picked Melania Trump because she got slapped this week by Michael Wolff for trying to slap him with $1 billion lawsuit. So he slapped back first under the New York law called SLAPP. The fact that you can't force somebody to go
strategic litigation against public participation.
Yes,
it's an acronym. So.
Yeah, so Melania Trump is my schmuck of the week, and she got slapped back first.
Hey, you know, She's an old whore. That's happened to her.
Oh my!
She stepped on a plane of Epstein with Donald Trump the first time.
Yeah, just a nice girl from East Europe with long legs.
Slovenia.
East Europe, I said. East
And she's
Europe.
got great connections with Putin, as I understand.
Yeah, they have talked
briefly.
They talk.
All the time.
My nephew just started college in Slovenia. His college is free, and his father lives in Slovenia.
Oh,
And Putin,
you know,
when Donald
Who's
died,
their mascot? Any
you
idea?
come see me. You come see
No.
me. We live much better. So
the mascot at the University of Ljubljana, I think, is Slavoj Žižek. Nancy.
Oh, okay. I remember what I was going to say earlier, and it feeds in well with this. I went to see Fran Lebowitz on Wednesday night with a friend.
Wait a minute, Nancy. Wasn't she blown up in a kiln explosion?
No, that was
that was Fawn Lebowitz. Yeah.
And you know where she was from?
Oh wow,
Fort Wayne, Indiana. So
Wow.
there's a band in Fort Wayne called Fawn Lebowitz. Anyway, I went to see Fran Lebowitz, who is she's a humorist. I would not call her a comedian, but she was talking at the Fisher Theater, and she said something that got a big round of applause. And she said, the Democrats are useless. The Democrats in Washington are useless. And she said, I know they're in the minority. There's only so much they can do. They're being blocked at every turn. She said, but one thing they can do is amplify the voices of their constituents, and their constituents are furious. And it practically got a standing ovation. And so I'm going to give co-schmucks of the week to our missing in action, oddly silent Democratic senators, Alyssa Slotkin and friend of Bill Seikaly, Gary Peters, because what are they doing? What are they doing other than collecting a check for nothing? So there.
All right, Joel.
Okay, I'm going to go with Steve on this. I love sports. I love watching sports. It seems like the only, at least when I was growing up, it was clean. It seemed clean, and it was a joy, and it is a joy. And the fact that ownership of all these organizations, NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, they're all hooked into gambling now. The integrity of the game is really diminished, and it takes away from the love of the game. I can't trust a game that I thought was pure. Baseball was a metaphor for purity in many ways, and basketball, which we play and which we love, especially in this city, it is the ownership and greed and avarice has killed the golden goose. You guys are making millions. You're doing fine. You're going to keep doing fine. You have billion-dollar teams. They were still going to be billion-dollar teams. Did you really need more at the sacrifice of the game that's making you all this money? And our trust in the game, unless there is some dramatic action, is gone. I mean, mine is. I don't believe outcomes in basketball. It's easy to have a turnover. It's easy to miss a foul shot. You can do all sorts of things, And so the integrity of the game, you're giving this away, and you're selling it fucking cheap, and it disturbs me greatly. So those guys collectively, those who are who own these businesses, who take money away from people who can't afford to lose it, and are feeding on addictions, and the owners who don't give a shit and just want money now without thinking about the sport that they bought into, is just, they're all schmucks, and it makes me furious.
It is amazing, these guys who have made so much money in the game, and that, Steve mentioned, probably gambling away that money. In the same way, I'm always shocked by, but in the late 80s, we had a bunch of judges who were indicted in 36th District Court and Recorder's Court, and they took bribes probably totaling $3,000 to $5,000 at the most, and they lost their jobs, and they went to prison, except for Leon Jenkins.
Right.
It's insane how cheaply people will give up everything they've got.
Everything's for sale, and it shouldn't be.
Everything's for sale. Allan.
I'm going to go with Speaker Mike Johnson and many others who were calling the rally, the King's rally, the Hate America rally. We've seen this whole thing. I'm watching some of the candidates, John James, Eric Nesbitt for governor, and they're just trashing the Democratic Party. John James, whose family left Detroit when he was in 9th grade. He's blaming the Democrats for the crime in Detroit. The guy hasn't looked back. They moved to Southfield. He went to Brother Rice, and he pretends like he gives a shit about Detroit when you never see him in Detroit, except for when there's a Republican event at the casinos or something. So.
That means we never see him then. No.
Yeah.
Well, along with somebody using that rhetoric about the Hate America rallies, Michigan Congresswoman, a Republican from Michigan 9, Lisa McClain, has been using those talking points. Okay, well, I've got a couple of schmucks. One is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who, upon being asked by a Huffington Post reporter who made the decision for the now canceled summit between Presidents Putin and Trump in Hungary, why choose Hungary when it has a triggering effect on the Ukraine? When asked who made the decision, she said, "Your mom," which apparently seems to be a very common refrain by her and other White House staffers, including Stephen Chung. Odd job, as we've called him here on the show before. But also, I don't know if there's a word strong enough to help me out, my Yiddish brethren. Beyond Shonda and Mimser, certainly Schmuck is too mild, and that is the list of powerful men who allegedly brutalized and assaulted Virginia Giuffre. Her posthumous memoir is out. And the list is, of course, at the very top of the table, Prince Andrew, but including also a former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, financier Leon Black. And it seems like a lot of internet jockeys are filling in the blanks and are able to extrapolate who these people are. I'm sure more will be unearthed, even without the Epstein files being
Ehud
released.
Barak was into the rough stuff. He liked to smack her around. So
And choke her to the point of losing consciousness as well. So yeah, collectively those powerful men are my Mimsers, Schmucks, and everything else.
Mamsers, sir.
Mamser. Thank you. Okay.
No Mimsers in Yiddish.
Oh, okay, very good. All right.
Yeah.
It's you have to understand. I speak the Queen's Yiddish, so it might sound a little bit. It might sound a little bit.
Great
different.
term.
I have a little Mumser story. When I was in 9th grade, I was vacationing with some friends up north, this family friends, and there was another group of friends. They were European, and the mother was walking around going about her 4-year-old son, Nuti. She's going, "Who taught Nuti to say Mumser? He's walking around saying Mumser everywhere. Who taught him this?"
We got to find her. Anyways, thank you for another great show. Around the world in 80 days, and certainly around the news cycle in 7 days. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Steve Fishman. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and always with the last word, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.